करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
We'll begin with the poem The Daffodils.
The daffodils. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. William Wordsworth.
The first thing that strikes us when we read Daffodils is its simplicity. Of course, various other poems that we have covered in the initial part of this book also, they are quite simple. But what is probably unique or special about this poem Daffodils is that in the simplest of languages, the poet conveys a very high philosophical theme which is directly given in the scriptures of Vedanta. Probably no other poem covers the entirety as it is being covered in this poem, The Daffodils. You will find that till now, all the poems will have a particular line or a few lines that will be given in italics by Swamiji. That is, they are not in the original, but they have been specially marked by our Swamiji to lay emphasis that that is the key content or the philosophical content of the poem. Like in the turkey and ant, we saw that ere you will mark another sin, bid thy own conscience look within. So that is a very important message that is being conveyed in the poem. Like that we saw in the poem Pond, Olive Tree, in all the poems it's like that. It is interesting that in this poem, nothing like that is given. Probably the reason is that if you have to mark something as special, you have to mark the whole poem. That is how this poem is there. So each and every line is very significant. It is, what to say, highly philosophical and in some places subtle also. Subtle is that which will make you think more to understand the message. Something which is philosophical will take your thoughts towards the higher realms automatically. You find that both are there in this poem. Before we get into the poem, a background is necessary. Vedanta proclaims that you are the Supreme Self. Your real nature is called as Satchidananda, or the existence, consciousness, bliss. You are that now. So, liberation is not something like what is understood as salvation as given by some other schools of thought and some other religions also, that you need to achieve that ultimate state by going from here to somewhere else at a later point of time. So there is difference of time and space, both are not there. They are saying it is here and now, which you are already there. Therefore, it is only a matter of realization of that from within that is going to open up you. That is liberation, that is moksha, that is mukti, whatever you want to call it, that's kaivalya. That state of attainment of self-realization is just an awakening, it is a realization. Therefore, in the strict sense of the term, from the ultimate standpoint, there is no such thing as path. Path means you have to go from where you are to where you are not there. But you are already there. So where is the question of path? This is how Swami Ramatirtha also begins his talk on spiritual path. I think the first lecture in the second volume, he begins like that only. So it's a misnomer. So this is the basic theme that we need to understand, and from this angle we have to understand what is given as the spiritual path. Then what is spiritual path? Spiritual path is those practices that we adopt to remove the obstacles that are there, which is blocking us from realizing our own self. The effort that we put towards this is actually finite, and finite effort cannot reveal the infinite self. This is the law. So what does this finite effort do? Is that this finite effort removes the finite ignorance. Ignorance, however large it may seem to be, however unending it may appear as of now, it is still finite. So your finite effort, when it removes that finite ignorance, what reveals itself is the infinite self. So this sadhana that you do to remove the ignorance which is manifesting in the form of thoughts, desires, vasanas, all those things, this can be termed as spiritual path. So spiritual path has to be understood as that which we perform in order to remove the obstacles that is covering our inner self. And once that covering is removed, that which you already are is realized by you. This spiritual path is manifold. What is important is the ultimate goal of self or self-realization or the awakening. It is that which is given according to all schools of thought. But from the position that you are, you may reach that goal through various means, through various methods. So there are various paths that are prescribed and all are given sanction by great Maharishis, and they are all given in the Shastras. Of them, the three paths which are given as right royal methods for us is the famous trio of the Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga. In this context, we understand yoga as that which will unite us back to the self. Yoga in the sense of the term means union. So that we are separated from the self is an assumption now. Assumption means that is what we believe. Actually there is no separation. You are the self even now, but we are not aware of it. So in order to bridge that gap and make that within quotes the union possible, you need to adopt certain practices. And these practices are associated with the material equipments that you have. So when you use your body to do actions which will take you on this path, that is called as Karma Yoga. When you use your mind to feel emotions and a feeling of devotion in this path, that is called as Bhakti Yoga. And when you use your intellect and you are able to contemplate, reflect and then proceed in the path, that is called as Jnana Yoga. All of us are made up of all these three equipments. So karma, bhakti and jnana are given as the right royal paths which is applicable for everyone. There are, as I said, various other paths also. They are suitable for those particular adhikaris who are specially meant for that. But by and large, when we are talking to, when the Shastras are addressing the humanity in general, it lays more emphasis on these three paths because it is universally applicable. Suppose if there is something, even for the sake of explaining, we should not bring in those concepts because unnecessarily it will create a curiosity in the minds of people. Suppose we talk about something like Kundalini, something like various other things, So that may be true and that may be valid also, but under a well-trained guru, this person has to take in proper instructions and for him it is applicable. That is not meant for general public. What happened after the printing press came and when the Westerners came and saw and studied our scriptures is that each and everything was dug out and it was made open and free for all, like that it became. So each and everybody is aware, and particularly now when the information is available for everybody on the internet, it is free for all. But you have to be careful because ultimately what is employed is your own mind, your own intellect, and your body is involved in the sadhana. So if the dosage of the medicine, however correct the medicine is, if the dosage of the medicine is not proper, it might affect your body. Like that, various things has to be taken in under proper guidance. But when it comes to these three, again, this also has to be practiced under guidance and has to be properly taught by the master. But the scope is wider here. So karma, bhakti, jnana are the three paths that are given. Once a person practices these three paths consistently for a period of time, he then goes into a state of what is known as a withdrawal. Withdrawal is when he is no more preoccupied in this world as he used to be. He is all by himself. He has sort of become an introvert. You would have seen this chart displayed in Swamiji's lectures and also in his books. It's a very famous chart. This, in total, this path, gives a complete idea of what spiritual path is all about. So on the left side, you see that there are three distinct and different paths of karma, bhakti and jnana. And these three paths lead you to the main road, as it were, which is there in the middle. And that main road is, it is one, it is integrated, but apparently divided into three segments of Uparati, Dharana and Dhyana. Uparati is withdrawal, Dharana is given as concentration, for want of better word, concentration is the closest word, and Dhyana is meditation. And then it leads you to the final state of Samadhi, which is self-absorption or self-realization also we can say. What is this Uparati? Uparati is a state where you are not preoccupied in the world. In 6th chapter of Gita and 5th chapter of Gita, he is talking about the three stages. The three stages of the spiritual path is a yogi, sannyasi and a jnani. So the first portion can be taken as the sadhana for yogi, and second portion is the sannyasi, third portion is the jnani. A person who is extroverted and who is not aware of the spiritual path, we are not talking about him. He is a ayogi, ayukta, he is a person who is not united. But for a person who has turned towards the self, who understands this, then what he must do in the beginning is an extroverted practice, because he is lot of desires is there still within him. Therefore, the karma, bhakti and jnana that he does at this stage is all distinct and different, and they are also expression oriented. So for a yogi, the sadhana is more expression oriented. For a sannyasi, the sadhana is absorption. So that is the distinct change. He is more introverted in nature. Probably he will do still various activities which can be mapped under either karma yoga or bhakti yoga or jnana yoga, but it is an integrated practice where you do not see distinction and demarcation there, where his whole life is oriented towards the sadhana now, and that is when he is withdrawn from the world. And then he enters the stage of dharana. Dhara means a continuous flow. Dharana means the thought of the self in him is now in a very continuous flow. He is, in a way, he is focused upon the self, and it does not leave him in any way, even as he does various things in the world. A unbroken chain of thought flow towards this is called concentration here. So you must understand the word concentration specific to this in this context. That is dharana. And slowly the dharana takes him into the final stage of meditation, which is dhyana, where the eyes automatically closes, and he is now fixated in that single thought of the self. And when he is immersed in meditation for a sustained period, his thought gets absorbed in the self totally, and then he has finished his journey in self-realization or God realization. He has become a jnani. This in total captures what spiritual path is all about. In the initial phase, one needs to do karma yoga more, because we begin with a bulk of desires. Karma yoga, if you want to say in essence, is that which helps you to reduce the quantity of your desires. Bhakti yoga improves the quality of your desires. Jnana yoga changes the direction of your desires. I repeat, karma yoga reduces the quantity of desires, bhakti yoga improves the quality of desires, and jnana yoga changes the direction of desires. In the initial phase, as we practice all the three together also, there has to be a lot of emphasis on karma yoga. Because even among these three, karma is much more extroverted than the other two because of the equipment that is involved. Even if you want, suppose if we are attending a class like this, or we are taking a class like this, this essentially forms what is known as a Jnana Yoga, or a path of knowledge. But this is definitely expression oriented. Similarly, when you go to a temple, when you do some arti and do puja at home, all these are part of Bhakti Yoga, or you say your prayers, but that is also again more expression oriented. Karma also like that, it is largely expression oriented only. But what happens at the stage of introversion is that same thing that you will be doing, not the same activities. I mean, you will be immersed in those activities by which it is absorbed within you. A vigorous movement of the bodily participation will not be there, for the simple reason that that which shakes your body up, which is the bulk of your desires, has been offloaded. So you are a lighter personality now, so you will be able to be sitting in a place and absorb things also. So that's why we said it's an integrated practice. There you need not demarcate into what is karma and what is bhakti, etc. Whatever he does, everything is integrated into the sadhana of finding out the self. In fact, we can say in the beginning stage, we can even work for our self-development, because to keep the thought of self-realization and work is rather difficult. But as you become introverted, the thought of self is available for you, and you can think about it on a much more sustained basis. So, it is fair enough to say, sir, that for a sannyasi, self-realization can be a realistic goal. And then as you proceed along, then you gain jnana, and then you become the ultimate jnani here. Jnani is one who is enlightened here. So, this totality of the spiritual path, why we gave this sort of a lengthy introduction is that it is amazing that this entire theme of the spiritual path given in Vedanta is totally captured in this poem Daffodils. Whether Wordsworth meant like that and wrote, we do not know what is the circumstance in which this poem came out. There are various interpretations, and you can go and read. But What is interesting is from a Vedantic point of view, it so beautifully fits in that probably no other poem comes as close to Daffodils in terms of giving the total picture. And even if you analyze various contributions of our Swamiji, I would say in this English poems, one of the greatest contributions is the commentary on the poem Daffodils. It's a totally different. Having studied Vedanta, we will be now able to easily understand this. But you have to picturize or visualize how this was striking a person who was deeply immersed in the study of Vedanta. From that angle, if you see, it is really mind-boggling. So this poem has just not to be understood, it has to be felt. And probably that's what Wordsworth also felt. Otherwise, such a simple poem could not be giving such a deep message. No, we'll get into the poem. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills. This is the first two lines of the poem, captures the essence of Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is the attitude of service and sacrifice. It is an attitude by which you say après vous is after you. When you open the door and you let the other person in, you say after you. That attitude of you coming first and your actions oriented toward that is called as Karma Yoga. So your karma becomes Karma Yoga not by change of action but by the change of the attitude in your action. You can do exactly the same thing that you are doing, but when your attitude towards performance of action changes from what I can get out of this action to how I can contribute with this action, then you are in the starting phases of Karma Yoga. And Karma Yoga is something that everybody can practice without any fear. Bhagavad Gita says, Neha Vikramanashusti Pratyavayuvana Vidyate. There's no contrary effects here. And it is to the extent that you put in, immediately the results also are visible. So the Karma Yoga one can very, very happily and easily take up and practice. And how is it conveyed here? He says, I wandered. Wandered gives an idea that he is not fixated in a place and he is detached. But wandered not with family and friends like gypsies and nomads do. Wandered lonely. All by himself. But not aimlessly going here and there, but as a cloud. It's a very interesting example of a cloud. See, if you look at it from the highest angle also, a cloud in the vast sky seems to be going here and there aimlessly. But you will find that the pattern of the cloud moving is based on where the cloud is required. In other words, the winds blow from a high pressure area to the low pressure area, and that is where they drive the clouds. And once the clouds go there, what do is that they pour themselves as rain. So cloud is that which is the ultimate giver. It symbolizes the ultimate of all sacrifices, because you can give all that what you have, but cloud goes one step ahead and gives itself away. So therefore, this person in a detached way is wandering in service, as it were, like a cloud. So that means these few words in the first line itself captures what is this Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is to dedicate yourself to a cause wherever that is required without any selfish motive. That is Karma Yoga. And such a person, what happens is that he floats on high over vales and hills. This cloud floats on high over valleys and hills. Valley and hill represents the highs and lows of life. It is talking about all the pairs of opposites. So when a person dedicatedly works in the spirit of Karma Yoga, he rises above the affectations coming from the pairs of opposites in the world. World is called as Dvandva. Dvandva means pairs of opposites. Heat and cold, joy and sorrow, All these are the pairs of opposites. Because of our likes and dislikes, when we operate at a lower level, we do get affected by these pairs of opposites. But when you work in the spirit of Karma Yoga, you rise above the affectations of the pairs of opposites. So, we saw in the chart that Karma, Bhakti, Jnana can be simultaneously practiced according to your proportion. All that is correct. But we said that in the beginning stage there has to be a lot of Karma Yoga because we need to deal with the bulk of our desires. In the chapter, the spiritual courses or spiritual path in the Vedanta treatise, 4th chapter in part B, Swamiji talks about how you must analyze your personality and understand your proportion and then adopt all the 3 yogas he has given in detail. For a person who is having naturally the tendency to feel better, for him the emotions come out in a very nice way, in a positive way, that he is able to feel like that. To that extent, Bhakti Yoga is suitable for him. For a person who is extremely intellectual, goes based on reason and logic, who will analyze, who has that strength and capacity, for him Jnana Yoga will be suitable. In both these cases, there has to be certain elevated state of your either the feelings or the thinking, that is mind or the intellect, where it is well developed. But what prevents their sort of extraordinary or the proportionate development inside is that when you are preoccupied in the world based on the lot of desires that we have. So in a person in whom both these are balanced or to the extent that they are not developed so much, then what happens is that he automatically takes to karma or action. So therefore, first you need to attend to the bulk of desires, make yourself somewhat light, then even Bhakti and Jnana at that stage will be more easy and useful. So even as you do all these 3 simultaneously in the initial stages of your spiritual path also, there has to be more emphasis on Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga prepares the personality, just as if you want to get the fruit of your crop, you need to do proper farming, and that proper farming involves hard plowing first. You have to prepare the soil, and that is a very hard job. Once that land is prepared like that, then you can you should water that field, make it soft. Once the soil is well prepared like this, then you can plant the crop, then it will yield the results. You cannot go and plant the seed when the land is not tilled at all. It is not going to yield result. Exactly like that. The thought of that you are the self Tattvamasi cannot be given to a person who is not at all prepared. It may be counterproductive also sometimes. So you need to do the hard work of Karma Yoga, which is equivalent of plowing the field. Once you do that good time consistently, then what happens is that the aim of Karma Yoga is Chitta Shuddhi or purity of heart. And in that purity of heart, Bhakti will come. And once that Bhakti is there, it then slowly matures into Jnana. So this is the sequence also here. Though Bhakti and Jnana are introverted practices and all 3 has to be simultaneously done, it is fair enough to say that Karma, Bhakti and Jnana are the sequence in general. That is why great interpreters have given even Bhagavad Gita, the first 6 chapters is in a way Karma Shatkam. It's talking majorly about Karma. But you will find the highest philosophy and other Bhakti oriented things are given in the first 6 chapters also. But main focus of there is the aspect of Karma Yoga. The second 6 chapters the main emphasis of Bhakti Yoga. That leads you to the third 6 chapters, which is the Jnana Yoga. 13th, 15th chapter and all is talking about the highest philosophy. Where we go through this sequence in Gita, you become prepared for the 13th and 15th chapter there. So like that is the sequence. That sequence is very beautifully maintained here. So because of this attitude of service and sacrifice, now he is elevated, and such a mind is now suddenly able to come in contact with divinity, as it were. So that awareness is given in the next line. When all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Notice the comma after host, which Swamiji has mentioned in the commentary also. In fact, our colleague who's in London, probably he was asked to go and verify the original manuscript which is there in the library there, to check if the comma is there, and it was there. Because host comma of golden daffodils may be grammatically not correct, but this is very important in the context of the poem, that comma gives a pause. That pause indicates the feeling of the poet, where he is caught unaware by this crowd of golden daffodils. And also that word host also indicates that as though he's being welcomed or drawn by it, like a host a host will invite the guest, like that it is. So sudden transformation or a sudden feeling enters his mind, and from here onwards, the major portion of the poem is talking about what is known as this Bhakti Yoga. So Bhakti Yoga is nothing but a feeling of the divinity. It comes out of the awareness of the Supreme Self pulsating everywhere. So only when you are elevated to a certain extent by doing selfless actions can you even identify this. Otherwise, you may daily see sunrise and sunset and it will not create any effect upon you. But when you are in an elevated state, it speaks to you in a different language. It fills your heart with something else, You will be able to visualize divinity everywhere. And not to talk about nature here, and it is said that this is inspiring for Wordsworth in his district, where it is all beauty of nature is everywhere there. So every expression of the nature is nothing but expression of the divinity only, and that is the way it strikes you. So from now on, he goes into raptures, describing the daffodils. When all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. So as you have to only visualize this. There is no explanation. In fact, more explanation may even, it will spoil the whole picture. So you just visualize the poet walking there, and suddenly he is caught unaware with a host of golden daffodils, and all of them are dancing in the breeze. Like that it is. Imagine yourself to be in the midst of the daffodils. That's all this poem is all about. You have to imagine yourself in the field of daffodils here, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. And then he goes on to what is known as like a poetic description. And this type of a description can come only when your feeling of identification is overflowing, brimming. You see the poetry of any poet or any sage or a saint when he is in raptures, when like Mirabai with Krishna, or any poet, even normal poet, when they are in the state of ecstasy, when they are visualizing the Lord, or when they are visualizing a scene or something, you will find that they are going into details and describing. There will be exaggeration, and there will be various emotions that are coming out of it. All that cannot be probably explained word to word in a philosophical and subtle angle, but what will convey the meaning there is only when you feel along with the poet, and that is what you need to do in the next two stanzas. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in a never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 I saw at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. So just as in the Milky Way or constellation, the stars are there, they are shining and twinkling. So various moods of the things are captured like this in the Milky Way. These daffodils also stretched in a never-ending line. Just as you cannot count the stars on the sky, you cannot count the daffodils that he saw there and he enjoyed there along the margin of a bay. By the side of the lake, actually, bay is the area where it carves in like this. Along the margin of the bay, there is this daffodils which has grown everywhere. Okay, probably this is the season. In fact, the picture that you saw in the beginning of the class was sent by one of our friends who is in UK. She studied with us at the academy, and she's also taking class there, a senior disciple of Swamiji. She said that this is the season that it blossoms. Probably it's spring there also. And it is there everywhere, and she is near a place like this where she can see the daffodils all the time now. And it was a photograph that was sent by her, you know. So 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in a sprightly dance. You have to imagine there's a breeze and there's this daffodils shaking here and there, and it appears like a beautiful dance for the poet. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. The waves beside them means, beside them is the lake, and because of the sunshine in the lake, it is sparkling. So the waves are also dancing in the breeze, and it's a very, a very beautiful scenery. You would have seen it in a pond or a lake also, that there is a gentle movement, and it is very soothing for the eye. But what he's saying is, the dance of the daffodils is better than that. They outdid the sparkling waves in glee. They are very happily doing this. The daffodil, they are dancing. And so, what does this all result in? A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. There are some interpretations where I said it really doesn't fit in, and I don't want to get into also, but they are saying Wordsworth was sad and he was walking lonely, and suddenly daffodils he saw and he became very happy. Maybe, we do not know, we cannot rule out any interpretation like that. But what he feels here is a different kind of pleasure altogether. So he says, amidst all these things, how can a person not be happy? A poet could not but be gay. And why he says poet? Poet is a person who has these feelings pouring out of him in a different frequency that he is there. And in Vedantic parlance, a self-realized person is called as a kavi. Kavi is one who is able to bring out the poetry. And when does the poem come out is when you are in a very ecstatic mood. You cannot try and create a poetry from this time to this time. Of course, you can do certain things like how the poets write lines for the movie songs also, but they will not be as equivalent to when poetry comes out of a poet automatically, naturally by itself. And in a natural company like this, the entire thing there actually transforms itself into the ecstasy within the poet. So the poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. This talks about the extreme identification of the poet, and identification is the essence of Bhakti Yoga. Identification or feeling of love is that you feel the same way as the other person. The joy of the other person is your joy. You know, that sort of a feeling, and that's what we studied in Abub and Adam also, that one who is able to have a universal feeling of love, that is true bhakti to God. So this is Bhakti Yoga. Then a sustained practice of this transforms that feelings into a hard, deep contemplation and thinking, which is indicated in the next verse, and that is Jnana Yoga. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. If you listen to Swamiji's reading of this poem carefully, which was there in the beginning, he gave enough pause after both the gazed, and that probably that is how you should read the poem also. Jnana Yoga is deeper reflection and contemplation upon the truth. So this terms gazed and gazed. So why is saying gazed and gazed means he is now deeply into it and he is looking at it in a perceptive way. You will find sometimes a three-dimensional picture is given. Apparently it is all very confused, messy and hazy outside. But there is a way by which you have to look into that picture, and then there is a three-dimensional picture that emerges out of it. Many people get irritated, and you need to in fact have even a calm mind to look at that picture, and you have to just gaze into that as though seeing something beyond it on the picture, and then only that picture, actually what is hidden there, emerges out. This is how we need to deal with the knowledge. You need to spend time with it early in the morning, reflecting and contemplating upon it. When we studied reflection, we said that you throw light upon it from various angles in a sustained and in a very proper way, so that you are able to get the full picture. And when you get that full picture, you must get this feeling of wow, that sort of a thing. And the daffodils that he casually saw and he got immersed into, what is that power or what is the wealth of that sight, he is not able to gauge now. Later it's going to come. So that is what he indicates here. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. In fact, this awareness in its purest form is nothing but jnana. If you are able to go through the feelings and transcend beyond it, you are sure to reach this state of absolute knowledge. So he says, I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. So this is indicative of deeper contemplation, reflection, which is the essence of Jnana Yoga. Once this is done, what happens is that he is withdrawn from the scene. So very clearly in the path we saw that karma, bhakti, jnana is that leads you to the state where there is a withdrawal. Now he is away from the scene, probably in his house, but he is now caught up in this relationship with daffodils. There is a continuation from the previous line. For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood. Because he says, I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. Why he says that is, I am able to understand when I am now withdrawn, when I am more introverted, for oft when on my couch I lie, he is lying in his couch in vacant or in pensive mood. This is a very interesting line, in vacant or in pensive mode. Usually vacant is something very blank, nothing is there. Pensive is when you are deeply into a certain thought. So they seem to be like contradictory. And Swamiji's commentary here is outstanding. Vacant is actually, he is now vacant of the worldly thoughts, and this is a very clear indication that he has risen above all the worldly thoughts, as it were. But he is pensive means he is deeply contemplating on the thought of reality. Daffodils is the reality here. Don't forget the theme of the poem. The theme of the poem is that the ultimate reality is represented by the daffodils. So, in vacant or in pensive mood, so he is completely withdrawn and he is in a state of uparati, that sort of a stage where the worldly matters do not matter to him anymore. For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. Underline that inward eye also. It is very, coincidental. Yesterday was the Mahashivaratri, and Shiva is called as Trilochana. Trilochana means one who has three eyes. The third eye is not visible as a fleshy organ like the other two eyes. The third eye is in Vedantic parlance called as Jnana-Chakshu. Jnana-Chakshu is the eye of wisdom. Eye of wisdom is that which opens up within you by this process of nididhyasana or a deeper contemplation. where you have that X-ray vision to penetrate through the external covering, and with that X-ray vision you are able to see the Atma within everybody. That sort of a vision is the vision of the third eye. And that is what very interesting, that exactly the same word that Wordsworth also uses here. They flash upon that inward eye. They flash upon means they just come and strike you automatically. Now that vision itself is completely different and deep, So you are as though capturing reality in your perception. They flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. So he started walking lonely first, and now he has come up to the level of solitude. Solitude must not be understood as something when you are not in favor of company, or when you are all alone by yourself, which might give even a negative connotation. Solitude means a state where you are with yourself. That is what the solitude means. Swami Chinmayananda very beautifully gives a quote. He says, if you are not happy with the company of yourself, how can others be happy in your company? Not possible. So only when a person is happy in his own company can he provide a solace to others also. This is the law. So therefore, he indicates that here as bliss of solitude. So obviously, these four lines very clearly indicate the path, the right royal path, which is there given in the middle of the middle portion as the a stage of a sannyasi, where there is withdrawal, where there is dharana, where there is dhyana, culminating in meditation. They flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. Also, the word solitude indicates that meditation is a practice which you ought to do when you are in solitude. Ekaki, yathachittatma, like that says Bhagavad Gita. Like even recently in Kaivalya Upanishad also we saw that it is your private relationship with God. There is no such thing as group meditation. There is no such thing as jointly everybody doing all that. It can be a gimmick, or it can be a practice for you to learn certain things which has nothing to do with the deep meditation that is being talked about here. It has to be in solitude, and that solitude is bliss. You are extremely in a happy state. You are in a pensive mood, and then that inward eye, what flashes is that reality, which is the bliss of solitude. And then the final merger takes place, which is self-realization. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. Till now, first he was separate from the daffodils, then he saw daffodils. All this is his physical experiences, and then daffodil slowly enters his personality, and then it flashes upon his inward eye. Finally, what happens? Finally, what happens is that objective experience of daffodils has turned into like a subjective experience, subjective apprehension. He and daffodils are not separate anymore. And my heart with pleasure fills. Pleasure is that ultimate bliss here. It is the state of Ananda. It is the state of your original nature. And then my heart with, of course it's poetically put as, and then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. Dances with the daffodils means this dance is the culmination. Again, it is a, what to say, it's just coincidence, you can say. Whether it is in Lord Shiva, we saw that the Tandava or the dance is the culmination of Nataraja in the final state of self-realization. In the Leela of Krishna in the Vrindavan, the Rasa Krida is the ultimate culmination of all, and that talks about self-realization. That is indicative of that, where all the gopis which represent the jiva and the thoughts, they merge into that consciousness in that sort of supernatural dance. And here also he says the same thing. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. William Wordsworth, a fabulous poem. Before we take up Swamiji's commentary, we will just go through this poem once again. It is, what to say, this can be read again and again. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in a never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw at a glance, tossing their heads in a sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. The last line is extremely inspiring. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. You have to again only imagine or experience. God should take us to that experience. That's all it is. We will take up Swamiji's commentary.
The poem indicates to humanity the path to spiritual enlightenment. The path encompasses the three disciplines of karma, action, bhakti, devotion, and jnana, knowledge, followed by meditation. Meditation culminates in merger with the supreme reality. The first part of the poem deals with action. Wandering alone like a cloud implies selfless service performed in a spirit of detachment. When a spiritual seeker continuously engages himself in service and sacrifice, his personality suddenly experiences a unifying feeling of love. The poet very subtly indicates this gush of love by placing a comma after the word host. The joy of love experienced at the sight of daffodils indicates universal love, the essence of devotion. And the words gazed and gazed suggest contemplation and acquisition of knowledge. The spiritual practice of meditation culminating in enlightenment is evidenced by the last stanza. The poet's mind is vacant of worldly desire and attachment. He remains pensive in deep thought of reality. That opens the inward eye referred in the scriptures as the eye of wisdom, Jnana-Chakshu. He becomes one with the all, dances with the daffodils.
Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate